I need help immediately. It looks like she's dead.
A young woman is found in a pool of blood inside of her apartment, shot through the eye. Her fiancé frantically called 911, but the story he told dispatchers quickly unraveled, and investigators followed a damning trail of evidence straight back to him. The apparent motive behind this cold-blooded killing is shocking, and you will not believe what the killer did right after. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber.
911, what's the address of the emergency?
Hello?
Hello, this is 911. What is the address of the emergency?
I need help immediately. It looks like she's dead.
Okay, what is the address?
Oh my God, I just got home.
All right, let me put you over to our fire and rescue in case there's help, okay? Hold on one moment.
Oh my God.
A former professional mixed martial artist is behind bars instead of in the octagon after he pleaded guilty in connection with the killing of his fiancée just months before their wedding. We are going to go step by step through this case, look at all of the information that prosecutors used to nail their suspect. There is a lot, including his own admissions, and I gotta say, his incredibly suspicious actions on the night of the murder. So the case dates back to May of 2021, and professional MMA fighter Phillip Keller and his fiancée, popular body piercing specialist at Da Vinci Tattoo and Piercing, Alicia Campitelli, who friends and family called Red, were living on Merritt Island in Brevard County, Florida. And apparently, Red and Keller were having some trouble in the relationship. That's what's been reported. Now, according to Brevard deputies, Keller had relapsed into drug use on May 14th, and this apparently led to a blowout with Red. Keller tried to claim that he'd left the apartment after Red had made him sleep on the couch. When he came home the next morning at around 11 a.m., he called 911.
Okay, what city is this in, sir?
Oh my God, I'm trying not to step on anything. What?
What city are you in? Are you in?
Yes, it's...
Okay, and what is your name, sir? All right, and what's going on there?
It looks like she's been shot. She's been robbed. She's been robbed.
Okay, and you said it looks like somebody's been shot there?
She's laying right in front of me.
Okay, I have help already on the way, sir. Is she conscious?
Okay.
Is she breathing?
No, ma'am. No.
Okay, she's not breathing at all?
No.
Okay, can you tell where on her body that she was shot?
Like somewhere like in the head.
Okay.
Oh God, there's blood everywhere.
All right, is there anybody else in the house, or is there anybody else that lives there, sir?
It's just her.
Okay, Phillip, how old is she?
She's 35.
35. Do you know when the last time you talked to or spoke with her or saw her awake?
Yes, it was last night.
Okay, last night. Okay, and you haven't been since then? Hello, sir? Hello? Hello?
1527 Schoolhouse Street.
Okay, so we got help on the way? Yeah, we're on our way too. Thanks. Thanks.
Now, according to Brevard County law enforcement, Keller disconnected the call, but we know what happened next because that's thanks to police reports that Law&Crime obtained from the sheriff's office. We're going to go through everything. And to talk about each step of this process, I want to bring in an expert here. I want to bring in criminal defense attorney David Shapiro. David, thanks so much for coming on. First of all, that 911 call is chilling, and it's also very telling, to say the least. What'd you make of it?
Yeah, without question. First of all, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be back. The 911 call was telling, right? It's telling even in the way it ended, in the sense when he was asked a question, when Keller was asked a question that he presumably didn't want to answer, or may have realized, hey, I'm probably saying too much as is. He disconnected the call. And you could tell he's sort of fumbling over his words. He's having a hard time putting two and two together there. What he said ultimately, contradicted everything law enforcement gathered in evidence in the days ahead.
And this murder happened in May of 2021. He wasn't sentenced until February 2025. Is that a normal schedule? Is that a long schedule?
Yeah, certainly. A couple of things at play here, right? One is we're coming off the pandemic in 2021, so there was a backlog in courts nationwide. right? Whether you're in Florida, whether you're in San Diego, wherever you may be. And what we also know is that, whenever you have a case involving forensics, whenever you have a case involving murder, whenever you're dealing with cell phone evidence, you're dealing with license plate readers, you're dealing with a case of that magnitude where someone's charged with, and presumably there's enough evidence for them to be convicted of even a first-degree murder, it's a long process. So the fact that we're 3-4 years after the fact, not super concerning, not super alarming, but it is certainly a long period of time.
Now, we have been all on top of this story for a while now, and the reason that we can be on top of a story like this and really break it down and bring you updates is because of the amazing support that we get from our sponsor, Morgan & Morgan. This is America's largest injury law firm. This is a firm with over 1,000 attorneys. You know why they have so many? Because they win a lot. They have recovered over $25 billion from more than 500,000 clients. In the past few months, a client in Florida received $12 million after the insurance company offered just $350,000. Pennsylvania, a client was awarded $26 million. That is 40 times the insurer's $650,000 offer. Another client in Pennsylvania received $29 million after being offered only $500,000. And even if you think your case isn't worth millions of dollars, why not just start a claim and fight for what you deserve? Morgan & Morgan makes it so simple. You can start a claim from your phone in just 8 clicks. So if you're injured, you can easily start a claim at forthepeople.com/LC Sidebar by clicking the link below or scanning the QR code on screen. So let's go back to May 2021, okay? So according to the first deputies on scene, they actually had a hard time finding the crime scene because Keller had given 911 the apartment complex's address, but not the unit number. Now, they eventually figured out where they needed to be because there was a door that was open about 6 inches. They go inside, and when they go inside, deputies say they found Keller standing in the living room, and on the floor nearby was red, apparent gunshot wound to her left eye. Now, I'm going to read you from what it says in the police report. It says, quote, while outside with Deputy O'Hara, Mr. Keller stated he last saw the decedent around midnight the night before. Mr. Keller stated during that time, around midnight, they were having an argument about his drug and alcohol abuse. He spontaneously stated he sold his gun 2 days prior to an unknown black male in the neighborhood. Mr. Keller further stated it was his belief that he was supposed to be the intended target and that if he was home, the boys would have robbed him. David, he spontaneously states that he sold his gun 2 days ago and that he's a target of the robbery. What's interesting about that is even if he really did sell his gun recently, that's something someone should just blurt out. A little curious?
No, I mean, I got to tell you, right? Obviously, first we're dealing with the tragic loss of life. So that's the biggest tragedy in all this. But as a criminal defense attorney, in a very close second, in my professional opinion, the fact that he was talking and what he said was catastrophic to his defense, right? And that's one of the worst things that any suspect in a crime, whether you're dealing with a first-degree murder or whether you're accused of a petty theft, could possibly do, because you're fumbling over your words, you're volunteering information, and you're arguably corroborating some theories that law enforcement may already have. Here he's trying to divert them away with this gun and the boys would have robbed me and all this other stuff, and it's just red flag after red flag after red flag.
And Keller seems to be trying to, direct suspicion away from someone else onto someone else. And according to deputies, he apparently admitted that he traded his handgun for drugs, for Molly, a type of MDMA, ecstasy. And there are texts that show that he threatened someone who seemed to be the dealer. Quote, Mr. Keller showed Deputy Wright text messages on his cell phone he sent on Saturday, May 15, 2021 at approximately 9:37 hours to his, quote, drug dealer. The first text message stated, I want my gun back, bro. I traded it to you and gave you cash and you ripped me off. You're lucky right now. Time to catch a whooping from me. We can do MMA rules one-on-one, bro. You tell me where. A second text message sent at approximately 9:40 hours to the same number stated, I forgot I even traded that to you. I was bleeped up. Now you know where I live. Stay the bleep away from my house, bro. Okay, David, those texts are interesting. What do they tell you?
Well, the timing of the text is interesting, right? Because the timing of the text was that Saturday morning when presumably she'd already been murdered, right? So it looks like he's scrambling. It looks like he's in some sort of an altered mental state because of the drugs, because of his addiction, and he's trying to cover his tracks. He's trying to lend some credence by way of these text messages to someone that he's saying was his dealer, that, his focus that morning was getting the gun back and having this one-on-one beef with the drug dealer. not necessarily covering his tracks for the murder of his girlfriend, which ultimately was proven to be the real situation.
During this investigation, there's a neighbor who told police they heard 3 gunshots at around 1 a.m. Okay, that timing very interesting when you think about when the phone call was made, right? At around 1 a.m. from the direction of Red and Keller's apartment. And when deputies spoke with Red's twin, by the way, she revealed she had gotten a message from Keller in the morning just hours after Red was killed. Quote, during an interview with the decedent's sister, Mrs. Alana Marshall, Mrs. Marshall showed your affiant a text message sent to her by Mr. Keller on May 15, 2021 at approximately 7:39 hours. The text message stated, hello, Alicia told me to tell you that she dropped and broke her phone. It's not working at all. She's getting a new one today. Now, deputies' reports indicate that a broken cell phone was found on the floor near Red's body, but David, is that really why that message was sent?
It's a prime example of panic. It's a prime example of trying to fabricate evidence. It's a prime example of a cover-up. And quite frankly, it failed miserably for a number of reasons. You know, you have this now in conjunction with the texting the purported drug dealer with this beef to get back his phone. This is all going on 6, 7, 8, 9 hours after the gunshots were heard by the neighbor, right? So it's just complete panic mode. It may very well be substance abuse or alcohol abuse. It may very well be a substance-induced or alcohol-induced panic, or it could very well be the fact that this guy just realized that for whatever reason, he took the life of his long-term girlfriend and his fiancée.
Through interviews, surveillance footage, banking records, deputies were able to put together a timeline of what happened here. And I'm going to take you through it right now. So according to Keller, he had wrecked his car. So he drove Red to work on Friday, May 14th. He told deputies he relapsed that day. And Red's coworker confirmed she drove Red home that evening at around 7:15. Keller said that Red was only inside for a few minutes when an argument broke out between them over his drug use. Red had apparently left, went to the gym, returned sometime between 8:30 and 9:30 that night. When she got home, the argument continued. Quote, sometime around midnight, the decedent told Mr. Keller to sleep on the couch. Instead of sleeping on the couch, Mr. Keller left the residence with the decedent's dog in the decedent's vehicle and drove to Cocoa to purchase more drugs. Mr. Keller claimed he did not return home until just a few minutes prior to finding the decedent deceased. Mr. Keller reported the decedent deceased at 11:13 hours on May 15th. Now, David, the way that Keller tells it, he left at around midnight to buy drugs and then come back for, 11 hours? That's a big gap, right? And by the way, turns out we knew what he was doing during that time, visiting multiple ATMs with Red's bank cards. I'll get into that, but that timeline doesn't make sense.
The eye in the sky does not lie, right? Surveillance, bank receipts, cell phone data, license plate readers, anything and everything. And what probably happened based on this timeline is she was shot before he ultimately is seen leaving the apartment complex with the dog, right? And what we have is we have surveillance from this apartment complex. Who's coming, who's going in the parking lot, what car. It sounds like it wasn't the greatest quality of surveillance because they're just giving descriptions of what someone's wearing, not necessarily who exactly it is. But the problem is that just doesn't make sense. And then you're using your girlfriend who you just killed hours ago, you're using her ATM card all over that area in Florida, presumably to take out cash to buy drugs, whether that's to sort of help you get through this tragedy that had just happened, whether it's to numb the pain, whatever the case may be. It is a paper trail that no matter how hard he tried and certainly failed doing so, he wasn't able to cover up or correct because there are just some things that you can't avoid when it comes to surveillance, when it comes to technology. Especially in a case of this magnitude, law enforcement is going to be all over it.
So according to deputies, Keller made at least 7 withdrawals. He was seen on surveillance at a Circle K getting money from an ATM inside the store just before 2 a.m. According to Red's bank records, he withdrew $303.50. Later in the morning, at around 6:50 a.m., he was seen on video at an ATM at a racetrack gas station. So first he does a balance inquiry, then he does 3 withdrawals. $403, $303, $203, so a total of $909. Minutes later, he was spotted at a Wells Fargo ATM withdrawing $103 in separate transactions. And more than 3 hours later, he was back at that same racetrack, this time taking out $63. In total, Keller stole almost $1,500 from Red's account. And these are very random amounts, very strange. Do you know why those specific amounts? Any idea about why those specific amounts? So it wouldn't trigger something maybe? I don't know. It's weird. Yeah,
I think certain ATMs, right, have limits. There are some you can only take out $200. There's some you might only be able to take out $100. He might have done it just in increments as to get him through the next hour or two, whether, whatever he needed to buy as far as drugs go. As far as the $3, that's likely a surcharge at some point. So if I go to an ATM at a gas station instead of going to my preferred bank, I want to take out $300. It's going to show as a 303 transaction because the ATM machine itself is going to keep a couple of dollars. But it's a very erratic, it's very inconsistent, it's very unplanned, it's very, sloppy. Not to mention that not only is he doing this in general, but he's doing this with his girlfriend's ATM card, who by this time we know that he had already murdered.
Now, if that wasn't shocking enough, guess what Keller did when he said he came home to find his fiancée dead in a pool of blood in the living room? He stepped over her to go change his clothes. Yeah, according to the police reports, he checked her for a pulse on her neck, did not feel one. Mr. Keller then stepped over the decedent and walked to the southeast bedroom. Mr. Keller then redacted and changed his clothes. When asked why he changed his clothes, Mr. Keller stated because his clothes were sweaty and he'd been in them since the day prior. Yeah, that makes sense, right, David? Yeah, he was sweaty. That's what it was.
Another example of sort of falling over your own words when talking to law enforcement. Whether you did that or not, there's no place to say that. It just makes you look heartless. It makes you look cold. It makes you look someone capable of shooting your girlfriend in the head, presumably for no real good reason, not that there really is a good reason to begin with. And it also makes you look like you had something to hide. Not that you were sweaty, that you were looking to get out of the clothes that you presumably wore hours earlier when you shot her repeatedly in the head.
Maybe not surprising that he ended up pleading guilty. We'll get to that in a second. So 5 days after the murder, on May 20th, Sheriff Wayne Ivey updated the public when Keller was taken into custody and explained how he basically ratted himself out.
Earlier tonight, Keller provided specific information relating to the crime to a citizen who then contacted homicide agents. Deputies located Keller at a local establishment on Merritt Island, who, upon seeing their arrival, jumped into Sykes Creek in an effort to avoid law enforcement. Keller was detained shortly after entering the water and transported to Criminal Investigative Services, where he was interviewed by agents. As a result of the investigation, an arrest warrant was signed earlier tonight by a judge, charging Keller with first-degree premeditated murder.
That's right. Keller, likely riddled with guilt, confessed to a friend who immediately did the right thing and took it straight to law enforcement. The deputies then set up this controlled calls between the friend and Keller and got Keller on tape, essentially spilling his guts. The basic transcript of the expletive-laden confession was in the report. Quote, "I killed her, bro. I killed her high as bleep. I did it. I don't know how I did it, but I can't live with myself knowing that. I'm a piece of bleep. I was super high on Molly." Mr. Keller stated that if he didn't have that drug in his body, he would not have grabbed the bleeping gun. "I shot her the first time and missed through a towel, and she ducked her head, and I shot her twice in the back of the head in a cold blood. I did it. I'm so bleeping sorry, ma'am." In fact, let's talk about that. When investigators searched the apartment, they found the towel. It had been dropped on top of blood spatter on the floor, and when the towel was folded up, 5 bullet holes lined up perfectly. Gunshot residue was found on them. And Keller went on to explain what he did after the murder. He left in Red's car, hit up the ATMs, bought more drugs, came home, saw the bag that the gun had been on the floor, so he gathered everything up, drove it to a nearby store where he threw everything away near a dumpster, and he said he threw the gun into a canal. And a little interesting note here, Keller said that he tried to locate all 3 shell casings to throw them out, only ended up finding 2. You know who found the other one? Crime scene investigators. They found it in a shoe that was in the living room. So the then 39-year-old was arrested. He was taken to the Brevard County Jail Complex, was likely very wet because remember, he jumped into a creek to try to get away from deputies, and he was charged with first-degree murder and denied bail. Took nearly 4 years, but Keller's attorneys eventually reached a plea deal with prosecutors, downgrading the charge to second-degree murder. And in February 2025, Judge Kurt Jacobus sentenced Keller to 50 years in prison. Now, according to the deal, he won't be eligible for parole until at least 25 years from now. And during the sentencing hearing, Keller didn't speak. He was seen wiping his eyes at the defense table. This is according to reporting from Florida Today. David, that's an interesting conclusion. Why do you think a deal was offered here, and do you think it's a right deal?
Yeah, a couple things at play is one from a factual perspective, right? They anyone with a pulse and a bar card would have been able to convict him on these facts. So it wasn't necessarily a matter of was he going to be convicted at trial? It was going to be how long it was going to take. And sometimes people may look at it and say, well, why did they cut him a deal? Why did he plead to second degree? Why didn't the prosecutor require that he plead guilty to first degree murder, what he was initially charged with? And there's many reasons why, right? There could have been a whole string of mitigation evidence that would have been presented to the district attorney about his substance abuse, about his otherwise overall character when he was not using, and some of the struggles or demons he may have been dealing with. It also could have been, they usually weigh in as they should, the prosecutors, they are weighing in with the victim's family, right? Do you want to put yourself and your loved ones through this trial and have to hear this evidence over and over again, the publicity that goes with it? And in this situation, yeah, it's a second degree sentence, but he still has to serve 25 years until he's even eligible for parole. And this is a guy who's now in his mid 40s, right? So he's going to be into his 60s by the time, in all likelihood, he'll be able to even be eligible for parole, not necessarily to say that he would ever be paroled to begin with.
Well, Red's mother, Deborah Moore, gave a victim impact statement, saying in part, "Our hearts are so broken every day. We still hear her laugh at our family gatherings. It was not just the end of her life, it was the end of our family's life." David Shapiro, thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
And that is all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.